Graduated from college in 1994. I guess I shouldn't say that because now you know my age, but 94, and then took a little 5-year hiatus in Charleston. Supposed to be for the summer, but I stayed 5 years, which happens sometimes when you go to Charleston. And I worked for the health department. I worked for a shelter for battered women, which is kind of how I got interested in prosecution and the whole world of women's issues and domestic violence and that sort of thing. And then decided if I was going to go to law school, I probably needed to go ahead and go. So I went to USC School of Law, graduated in 2002, and got hired at the solicitor's office in Spartanburg, South Carolina by a guy named Trey Gowdy, and was there for 8 years. I ran the Violence Against Women unit at the solicitor's office, so I prosecuted everything from domestic violence to homicide to death penalty case. And after 8 years, my boss decided he wanted to run for Congress and asked me to come with him. So I ended up being his chief of staff was there for 8 years. And when we left, we went to a large firm to work and be in private practice. And the big firm was just not for me. I really wanted to have the ability to take whatever cases I wanted to take and do any pro bono I wanted to do, and I still get to do that today. But just thought it was time to start my own practice at the, I won't say my age, but it was time. It was time. I think what I do is probably a little bit unusual than a lot of people just based on what my background has been. So I do deal with a lot of women's issues. I do work with victims of crime sometimes and help them walk through the criminal justice system, but I also defend people who've been charged. I do a lot of investigations work, and I just kind of wanted to have that all in one place and be the captain of my own ship, honestly. I think at its core and at my core, what I like to think of myself as is a problem solver. So I may get a phone call from somebody who is concerned because they're worried there may be an investigation and will that result in a criminal charge. And so I do like to get in on the front end and try to help work through that whole process and hopefully avoid the charge. Sometimes I have to jump right into the middle of it. It's usually somebody's worst day, darkest hour, and try to help them come to some sort of positive resolution. I take the same approach with the investigations I do, try to just figure out what is the truth of the matter and what can we do to fix this and make it better. And that's sort of how I approach my community work as well. How do we collaborate? How do we fix this? How do we come to some sort of understanding and agreement? So it's all about people's problems and helping them deal with the problems, hopefully fix the problems and put them on a path to a better life and making sure it doesn't happen again. I go back to being in the solicitor's office and work with victims of domestic violence and starting a domestic violence court in Spartanburg, which was solely focused, and I think they still do it, and had resources in place to help the perpetrators, resources in place to help the victims, and it was more of a holistic approach to dealing with that issue. I do get to work now on something similar, which is a homeless court in Spartanburg, brand new, and I was lucky enough to be invited to participate in representing people who, because of their homelessness, have been in positions where they may have been charged with a crime. And so I sort of get to relive a little bit of that specialty court experience, which is more focused on not so much the punishment, but on helping people get out of the circumstance on both sides. So I still get to do a little bit of that, but that's probably what I'm most proud of.